She is a devotee of the Divine Mother, and she draws inspiration from A Course in Miracles and other non-duality teachings. She is an international speaker, singer, a friend. She's all around everything. All around everything good. And today she's going to lead us in a talk that will get us into the spirit of the season. So I introduce to you Maureen Muldoon.
Thank you, Sherry. Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to Maisie and to Gigi. Anyway, it's just perfect. And here we are this morning on Christmas Eve. How lucky are we to find ourselves to this sweet little nook as those pilgrims came years and years and years before and continue to come and come and come every Christmas to this space of this idea of the manger. And to come to Christmas Eve with that sense of, whether you were a little child, whether you come with a sense of awe and joyful expectancy, or as an adult, when you come with that just sense of reverence and almost like a bit of a surrender and a sigh. To this moment, we still come, all of us invited to this holy night. Oh, holy night, stars are brightly shining. This is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining. Makes a big difference. Till he appears and the soul felt its worth. The song is telling us that prior to this birth of Christ, we were lavishing in this illusion of sin and error pining. And so we make this pilgrimage. We travel together, moving closer to our Christ. And as we do, we awaken to the soul that knows its worth. Your soul is waking up. Your soul is remembering its worth. And many of us together, we travel every day together. We feel like we're on this pilgrimage together. At least I do. Every morning we take a step and we take one lesson from A Course in Miracles, one day at a time. And each day, each morning we say, let there be Christmas, because guess what? I'm worthy of Christmas. And the Course goes a step further. It says, not only are you deserving of Christmas, but you are Christmas. And we think that we're lost and we're lonely, and yet we are literally the embodiment of Christmas. As Jeannie already said in the meditation, she read this section from A Course in Miracles. It says, what am I? And it says, you are God's Son, complete and healed and holy, a shining reflection of his love. In you is his creation sanctified and guaranteed eternal life. In you is love perfected, fear impossible, joy established without opposite. You are the holy home of God himself. You are the heaven where his love resides. You are his holy sinlessness, for in your purity abides his own. If that's not Christmas, I don't know what is. And what is Christmas but this birth of greater light, of greater love? So each time we come to this Christmas Eve, we get to be invited into simply remembering our role to love. That's it. And I know, as I talked about maybe last week, the week before, that, sometimes the rubber hits the road when it says like unconditionally and everyone, like the drunks, the drummer boys, the damsels in distress. We sometimes have a hard time loving those less savory folks because they show us something about ourselves that we are unwilling to love. So they're our teachers. And then we just go along this jagged journey until we continue to wake up and wake up and wake up, until one day we come to this decision. And this decision to decide, love or fear, a fork in the road, inviting us to attend to that inner manger of ourselves. And we begin to value a different vision. We begin to tap into that internal voice that's bringing us to a sense of a greater reality. And we say yes to that. And we get accompanied along our journey with other warriors who escort us to this place called Bethlehem. And we get ushered in by the healing nature of this northern star. And it begins to guide us, and we begin to follow it, but it's not an external star, it's an internal compass. And we see ourselves moving to the birth of our Christ. And even as we doubt the validity of our presence, we find ourselves following the calling of our hearts. This internal beat continues to pull us forward, this drumming, this banging, this tapping, this thumping, this drumming, this banging, this tapping, this thumping. And our soul song, it continues to usher us in. And if we honor it, we find ourselves arriving at the manger. The word manger means a place to feed. And so this is where we get our true soul food. And we not only get fed here, but we get to feed each other. And we're drawn to this space of grace like moths to a flame. And even the ego is screaming at us, like, this will be the death of you. And still we go. We go past the kings and past the shepherds and past the drummer boys, and we see this blessed mother, holding this child. And there's this light so brilliant, so beautiful, that we almost have to close our eyes, to cut ourselves off from its benevolence. But we're brave enough to keep our eyes open because we know that the light doesn't lie. It's going to tell us something about who we are. As that section from the Course in Miracles already explained, we are God's sons, complete and healed and holy, a shining reflection of his love. A Course in Miracles has a section about Christmas. It says the sign of Christmas is a star. It's a light in darkness. See it not outside yourself, but shining in the heavens within, and accept it as the sign of the time that Christ has come. So within you is the Bethlehem. Within you is the manger. Within you is the star. Within you is the Christ. And where is this Christ being born? In the manger of our soul. So I just want to invite you to take that idea in and imagine yourself as the Christ child, looking up at the benevolent gaze of the Divine Mother with the type of awe you sometimes reserve just for winter nights filled with stars. See if you can cultivate that degree of awe as you rest in the warmth and loving embrace of her unconditional love. Take in that love. And then see if you can allow yourself to be filled with it. See if you can see where it's filling you in your heart, or energetically. Does it brighten your mind? Does it delight you? However you're feeling and entertaining it, let it fill you, and then let it spill from you. And imagine who you might extend it to. Imagine extending it to your loved ones, your fellow community members, your distant friends and families, and even foes. Imagine yourself returning it to your God. The image of the mother and child reminds me of this infinity sign of light and love, where her light is pouring into this child is looking up at its mother, pouring its love back, and this love is just, singing in harmony, as it says in A Course in Miracles. And the thing that it also says in A Course in Miracles, it says that there is a light within you that cannot die, whose presence is so holy that the world is sanctified because of you. All things that live bring gifts to you and offer them in gratitude and gladness at your feet. The scent of flowers is their gift to you. The waves bow down before you, and the trees extend their arms to shield you from the heat and lay their leaves before you on the ground that you may walk in softness while the wind sinks to whisper around your holy head. It's basically saying, you are Christ, this is heaven, or you are Christ, this is Christmas. This is Christmas every day. And why would you tell yourself you're not holy? And why would the Course tell us we are if it weren't true? And why would we not accept it? And why would we not believe it? And what do we get out of shirking that state of being? And Jesus himself says, this and greater things shall you do. So shall we? Shall we do some great things? Are you listening to the calling of your heart, the drumming, the banging, the tapping, the thumping, the drumming, the banging, the tapping, the thumping, that internal guidance that's reminding you, you are Christ, come to feed the world. This is the fork in the road. There's two paths, one of acceptance, which we might not have yet to really, truly take, and one of resistance, which we know quite well. So have we come to feed the world in peace and harmony, or do we draw back from our own Christdom and leave ourselves outside the manger, denying our worth, denying our Christmas? It's easy to deny because in the acceptance, we cross the threshold into the mystery of God, into the mystery of God's plan. In order to cross the threshold, we got to let go of everything we know. In order to go, you got to let go of all that you are and all that you know, because all of that is not going to make it through the threshold. After you pass the threshold, you move into the mystery. And the mystery requires faith. You're no longer making your own plans. You're going to stay in that constant state of where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? But it's okay because you're escorted by angels who say, "Come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Come ye to Bethlehem." In Hebrew, the word Bethlehem means, I don't think you could guess this if you tried 1,000 times, but it's a funny one. The word Bethlehem means house of bread. Oh man, isn't that good? On the morning calls, we joke about getting fresh baked bread every day because we do. But the thing is, it's no joke. We wake up to miracles. Bethlehem is a house of bread. I've told you before that when it comes to God, we don't need to gather breadcrumbs because our Father owns a freaking bakery, a house of bread. And this is, where there's more than enough for everyone, where there's a seat at the table for everyone, no exceptions. There's so many Christmas stories. There's just so many beautiful Christmas stories that I wanted to share with you today. And I had to sit and I had to wait and I had to listen. I'm going to tell you some stories that I've told before, but these are the ones that I'm supposed to tell. And I wish I had more time to share all of the Christmas stories because there's just so many. But growing up in my family, we had about 10 nativity sets and none of the sets were complete. Some of them were missing a Mary or a baby or a king or two. And we kids, we had this great idea. There was 8 kids in my family that we were going to combine them all. We were going to set up this long parade of figurines making this journey across our living room to Christmas morning from one end of our living room to the other. The manger lived on top of our mantle above the fireplace. And all the nativity sets were lined up and we thought this is fantastic, but the procession wasn't long enough for us. So our little brother suggested that we might add Batman and Spider-Man and the Hulk. And at first we were like, no, they just look different and no. But our brothers kept pleading on their behalf. And so they were added. And then, once they got in, we thought to ourselves, well, we have a lot of Barbies, they might be like to go to a king's birthday party, although they were never dressed appropriately for such a journey, but we made sure that they kept up with their high heels and their mini skirts. And then, of course, Barbie gets in, Ken, and then the Joker. And we knew the Joker was a bad guy. We knew, but we just added him to the line along with G.I. Joe, who was literally dressed for war. And yet he was added to the procession for peace. And every day we let these figurines get closer and closer, my siblings and I moving this little tribe, a few inches closer. I wish that we had, the stop action photography because I would just love to revisit that long walk that just play it out across our living room every Christmas. Anyway, they would all arrive together, eventually circling the manger on our mantelpiece and witnessing the birth of Christ. And no one got left behind and no one had to prove themselves. And everyone was worthy. And I credit that to my mother, who always had a seat at our table for all the stray cats of the neighborhood. And on the couch slept many pregnant teenagers. And that's a whole other story. But anyway, our teeny little hearts would smile at each other as we placed these unorthodox guests, on the parade with their heads held high, knowing that they were worthy of Christmas. And it gave us hope because, if Batman and Barbie were worthy, why not us? So we found that although our mantle was pretty small, it somehow had enough room for all the angels and the brave teenage mothers and the donkeys and the jackasses and the jokers. We learned so much, looking at the characters in our communities and the characters around our kitchen table and the stories and all of those who showed up to the manger, who still show up like we do to the manger. And we welcome them all in, or we don't, right? There's this woman named Angeles Arian, who's a social anthropologist. She made a study of our ancestry and our cultural agreements and our communal archetypes, and she boiled it all the way down to 4 archetypes. The teacher, the warrior, the healer, and the visionary. And when we look at the nativity, we can see these characters, we can see these archetypes. Mary is the prime example of a visionary. She plays the role of visionary. The medicine of the visionary is to tell the truth without shame or judgment. So Mary receives this vision from the angels, and she gets this vision, makes no sense to her, but she says, okay, let it be done unto me. And she does not hide it. She actually heads over to Elizabeth's house and she celebrates her vision. It doesn't make sense to the world, but she says, I can't live by what makes sense to the world. I can't live by what makes sense if I'm to demonstrate my faith and deliver miracles. The meaning of the Immaculate Conception is she let the vision come through her without tainting it with her own fear. She let the concept remain immaculate. And the concept that she was birthing was Christ. It was a Christ child who was immaculate, pure love. And she was able to channel it, to extend it, to birth it, to deliver it, because she was also pure love. This was her identity, but it's also our identity. We are channels of pure love. So getting to know these archetypes help us to get to know ourselves. And we're given visions, things that are ours to deliver to the world, and our fear can make us want to abort it or attempt to fight it or attempt to figure out like the rules and the regulations of the world so that we can sort of fit it in. But if we're brave and if we get our bloated nothingnesses out of the way, if we refrain from checking the rules and regulations and the restrictions of the world, we can deliver visions of immaculate love. Got to be brave though, And we can join Mary and say, let it be done unto me. Let my soul feel its worth. Let me be Christmas. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to know the details. All I have to do is trust God's plan. And I will not let anything get in the way of that. Not even myself. That's how you can have a laborless delivery. You receive a vision, you begin to demonstrate a little willingness around that vision, and you begin to witness yourself doing irrational things because, the thing about love, when delivered, love is many, many things, but one thing it is not rational. It does not ration itself. It does not measure itself into safe little teacups and thimbles. No, love is kind of messy when you really think about it. And besides, to ration would mean to use our limited ideas and try and make sense of it. Whereas to vision, which is what Mary is, to vision would mean to move into the mystery. And when it comes to visions, you get with the visionary, you get with the vision, or you get out of their way. And Mary is this poor, pregnant teenager who says yes to this vision, this immaculate, this pure delivery. And here's the wonderful thing about powerful visionaries is that when they're that powerful, we still follow them. We follow her gumption even to this day. And if Mary didn't play her part, we would not have Christmas. The next archetype is the warrior. And the definition of the warrior is very different than what we think in the world. The most important aspect of the warrior is the ability to show up, to be present, to extend honor and respect. That's the definition of a warrior, according to Angelus Arian. We don't often think about the character of Joseph and being a warrior. He sort of unabashedly does respect Mary, though. He respects this pregnant teenager who, according to the world, deserves no respect or honor. And yet Joseph respects her and honors her. And if he didn't play his part, we wouldn't have Christmas. When Mary comes to him and tells him that she's, visited by an angel and she's going to give birth to God's son, he doesn't laugh or ridicule or deny. He speaks with his actions, and this is what the warrior does. He shows up physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and he chooses to be present. Not with resentment and not with a sense of duty, but rather out of a sense of passion. He would not miss this for the world. And the power of his presence and knowing his position allows him to understand that he's equally important to the completion of the story. The warrior has the power to communicate without words. So when you're in your warrior, you have this sense of, you could even ask yourself, what do I show up to? What is so important to me that I show up without question? It's interesting when we think about Joseph and what he says to Mary when she comes to him. Remember that romantic and articulate monologue that he delivers that just makes us swoon and fall over ourselves? Of course we don't, because he doesn't say anything. There's no record of him even speaking. See, the warrior love is beyond words. His presence speaks volumes. So we have the visionary. She's filled with this grace, with this faith, with this willingness to accept this vision. This is you. We have this warrior who shows up and extends honor. This is you. And next comes the healer, paying attention to what has heart and meaning. And this is the kings and the shepherds and the drummer boys, because they all pay attention to signs and symbols and synchronicities of what has heart and meaning for them. And the healer is the archetype that shares its gifts. So you can see all of these archetypes sharing their gifts. The ox and the lambs are even healers because they kept time, and the kings, they bring treasures and frankincense and myrrh, and the drummer's boy, they bring talents. And there you have time, treasure, and talents. These are gifts that we can bring. And they follow their hearts, the drumming, the banging, the tapping, the thumping, the drumming, the banging, the tapping, the thumping, all equally needed, because without them, we would not have Christmas. And when you fearlessly follow the vision and then diligently show up and honor that vision, next step is what happens is you're gifted by kings who will bow to you. And of course, this is just form following consciousness. Like the world, as it says in the Course, conspires to support you. And, we see this for the little drummer boy, who I have a sweet and soft spot for, and I'm sure you do too, because drummer boys, right? I mean, they're just great examples of healers. And the drummer boy story is a great example of a healer listening to his heart, the drumming, the banging, the tapping, the thumping of his heart. He's born a drummer boy. He knows it. Even before he's born, he fell in love with his mother's heartbeat. While he was in her belly, he began drumming, tapping, thumping, drumming, banging, tapping, thumping, drumming, banging, tapping, thumping. And so his mother was very happy when he was finally born. But his birth didn't stop his rhythmic ways. He just continued with the drumming and the banging and the tapping and the thumping. And he drummed on his mother's head and on his father's shoe, and he tapped on the kitchen table, and he thumped all around the house. When he was old enough, he begged his parents for the drum, and they thought he should be a shepherd boy, as sometimes our parents kind of miscast us in things, and that he didn't need a drum at all, but he begged and he bargained and he tapped and he thumped. And so finally they gave in. And he was so excited when he got his drum. He just played his drum everywhere. He was never separate from his drum. And he became, known as the little drummer boy. I wonder what you carry so close to your heart that you become known as. One day he gets wind of this party, this birthday party for this king, and he thinks, wow, I would love to go play for a king's birthday. He tries to find out where the party is, but the only information is that he needs to follow a star. The star is the symbol of this internal wisdom and the calling of this inner compass of a greater knowing of ourselves, asking us to go past what we know. I remember when I was in New Jersey and I wanted to be an actress, and I didn't know anybody who was an actor. And my dad set me up with this conversation with Maureen Muldoon, and he told me how to get on the train and get an agent and get a headshot and, find and follow that star. And so we have those things that show up for us when we're willing to step outside of the known. So the little drummer boy, he goes on this very rough voyage, as it happens when we begin to follow our heart. It's not all like easy sailing. Sometimes you got to go up some mountains and down some valleys, and he does, and he gets lost sometimes and scared even, but he plays his drum. It helps him to stay on course. And one night he arrives at the manger, and there's this gathering taking place, but he's thinking, what the hell is this? A freaking manger? Like, this doesn't look like a king's birthday. And then he gets a little bit closer and he sees there's actually kings there, standing before this little baby. And then he starts to think, this is what the ego does. This isn't good enough. That's the ego. And then, oh my God, I'm not worthy. That's the ego. And he goes through both of those things with seeing the manger and then seeing the kings. And he forgets that he even has a gift to bring. This can happen to the best of us. We look at what's going on in someone else's life and we think the grass is greener or cooler or cleaner, and we'll never measure up. And so we just go home and go back to bed. But the little drummer boy, he contemplates leaving, but he decides to stay and watch, and he watches these kings deliver these gifts, and he sees that the first king delivers myrrh, and he doesn't know what myrrh is, and he thinks it must be something good. And then the next one delivers frankincense, and he has no idea what the heck that is. And then he sees the third bring gold, and we all know what gold is. And so he thinks to himself, like, okay, I need to make a beeline the heck out of here, because I have nothing that will live up to this. And he begins to not just step back, but he wants to run. But right when he's about to run, he receives the noble nod of the Blessed Mother. Remember who the mother is. She's the visionary. So she gives him this noble nod, and he gets lifted into this idea of himself. Some say that he got lifted by the innocent hand of a child who placed him right next to the Joker. And the Joker made a joke like, Jesus, they'll let anybody in this joint. And everybody in the manger laughed. And again, the Blessed Mother nodded at the drummer boy to play. And the Blessed Mother, again, the visionary, she's able to see for him even when he forgets himself. That's what a visionary does. Who's the visionary inside of you? How are you seeing, your brothers and sisters in their optimal outcome? Are you able to awaken that visionary within yourself and share that with the world? Because under her gaze, he woke the F back up. And he stepped up to play his drum, and he plays, and he moves. Actually, as he's playing, it reminds him of himself and who he is, and he moves from fear into the fire of conviction, and he thinks to himself, wow, by golly, I'm not just going to play, I'm going to play my best. And he does. And the baby smiles. And the baby didn't smile for the myrrh or the frankincense or the gold, but he smiles for the drummer boy. And in that moment, Christ meets Christ. And we stand in awe, not just as we recognize Christ meets Christ, but even when we witness Christ meeting Christ, we stand in awe. We get to feast on the Holy Communion as we stand with each other in awe, as we deliver our gifts, as Maisie delivers her gifts, as Gigi delivers her gifts, as Sherry delivers her gifts. If we're really paying attention, we could be awestruck. And we could be in the manger right now, this heaven on earth. So here we have like this opportunity to see the messengers of angels all around us, to see the star of that inner guidance, to see and speak from that visionary, speaking truth without shame. The warrior within us and surrounding us, showing up and being present. Each of us are demonstrating warrior energy today. We could all be sucking down, martinis, watching TV. So far from who we are. I don't even know why I said that. It's funny. I guess we want to know all of our choices. And then the healer paying attention to what has heart and meaning. And then we have the final archetype, the teacher. This teacher who shows us how to love. Jesus was famous for his teachings of unconditional love. Saying love one another with no conditions. He didn't say love the Christians, love the Jews, love the gay, love the straight. Love the ones who look like you, or the ones that pray like you, or vote like you. No, he said, love the adulteress, the oppressed, the socially shunned. He loved the kings and the poor, and even the people who wanted to kill him. That's a teacher. Because the elixir of the teacher is to share and to be open to outcome, but not attached to outcome. So a teacher will teach you how to, add 1 and 1 makes 2. But if you use that, wisdom, to blow up cities or light up cathedrals, he lets go of the outcome. You're allowed to do what you will with the wisdom. And that's what a teacher does. That's not an easy thing to be. But where are we allowing ourselves to do that, to help those and then not fix or fixate on how they're using what we've told them? That's a good one, right? So he's this example of unconditional, fearless love. Not an exception, though, And he even says, like, if you don't, follow me, I'm still going to love you. So all of these characters, they stand in this public space under the night stars, beneath the light of a blazing star, really, a manger filled with animals and musicians and mothers and fathers and drunkards and kings. And the story is still happening, not just in midwinter, but every day that we say, I am worthy of Christmas. We are brave and willing visionaries, delivering what has never been delivered to the world with greater light. That's who we are. We are the warriors showing up and honoring what is, and then trusting our role in the grand plan of love. And we are the healers paying attention to what has heart and meaning for ourselves and honoring that. And we are the teachers attempting to love without conditions or attachment to outcome. So welcome to your manger, all the quiet Josephs, all the willing Marys, all the doubting drummers, all the dreaded donkeys and the badly dressed Barbies. Here we honor each other, we honor ourselves, and we allow ourselves not just to have Christmas, but to be Christmas in all of its facets and flavors and flair. And that's the word.
Maureen, that was excellent. Thank you so much. So much. You really dug into the picture there and put that picture in our mind, and we didn't have to leave it for a long time of who was around the manger. So I love your overall theme of be Christmas,
Mm.
not just have Christmas. Love that. Okay, everyone.
Thanks, Sherry.
I'm going
Appreciate
to pass it before we go any further. I'm going to pass it to Will for our community offering.
Thank you, Sherry. SpeakEasy is a not-for-profit community, and we exist on the generosity of our community members. We thank you for playing your part, for taking the opportunity to make a donation for today's daily bread. Your generous donations help us bring spiritual leaders, artists, and speakers to Sunday service and keep important conversations going. If you're spiritually fed by today's conversation, I invite you to go within and see what is yours to share. The donation link is in the chat, as well as on our website, speakeasyspiritualcommunity.com. And we thank you for your generous support.
Thank you, Will. Okay. Now it's time for the truly unique experience of Speakeasy Sunday service, and it's called Our Community Conversation. You know how you sometimes go home and you wish you could have asked questions about what you just heard?
I always
Well,
think
here you can do it.
yeah.
It's where we invite you to speak easily, find your voice and your truth, share your thoughts, your inspirations, your questions, your awareness with the community. Maureen, I just wanted to be clear that the teacher, warrior, visionary, healer, that we aren't just one.
Yeah.
I'm clear on that. We aren't just one.
No.
As we flow through life, we flow through different.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. But here's the thing. You might show up as more leaning towards one of those. So, you know, the idea is that we hone all four archetypes so that we get to the center of ourselves. But as we do that, you might find I mean, for me, I'm definitely a visionary. Like that's my easy place. Healer, I don't pay attention to details. No, I don't do that. You know what I mean? I pay attention to what heart and meaning, but healers pay attention to details too. So there's, I gave you kind of a crash course in these archetypes, and there's aspects of these archetypes that you might relate to and you might not relate to. And so so to know that I don't feel like a healer and that I don't pay attention to details would be a calling to do that. Would be a calling to make it my life's work to pay attention to details. And I'm sure my husband would love that, because even in our Christmas letter, he's like, she doesn't put down the lid on the toilet seat, and she doesn't return my brush, and she doesn't tell me when her Zoom times actually end, because I don't, and I'm just like, well, details, whatever. So yeah, so it's a beautiful practice to look at Angela's Arian's work, but I definitely gave you a crash course in it just so I could maybe help to open up the archetypes of these characters that we've known so well, and yet maybe we could relate to them more when we see like what they represent in the story. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that crash course. You said that there's a light within you that cannot die. And for some reason, I flashed with homeless people that I meet. And I'm in this naughty earthly habit of thinking that they want money. I mean, just assuming that they want money. And sometimes I know now that they see a light that they'd like for you to share with them. It's not always about the money. I personally sometimes question, do I want to cross the street before I pass them, that kind of thing. And no, quit thinking that everybody wants money. So sometimes they do. But at that moment, they'd probably like to share some of the light that they see in you, because they can see the light in you. And they know that they'd like to have their light relit or brightened up. What do you think about that?
Yes, and having known many people who've gone through homelessness, or some of them call it something different, like urban camping, and one of them said to me that she said the first thing to go is you become invisible. People don't look at you anymore. And so, you know, Joel Goldstein, I think it is, talks about how our eyes are fountains and what we put them on, we water. And so we withhold that water from this whole population of people, saying, you're not even worthy of my sight, you know?
Mm.
And so, yeah, what I've found, and I know what you have found, and what we find is that when we offer to give that little light, that, you know, they don't, people want that. They want that light. I was talking to a homeless guy the other day, and I said, "Do you want a cup of coffee?" Because he was outside Starbucks, and he said no. And we just started talking and talking, and I asked him if I could. His eyes were so beautiful. I was like, "Could I take your picture? Because your eyes are so beautiful." And he was like, "Well, you could take my picture if you get me a cup of coffee." He wanted to. Didn't want anything for free. He wanted to. He wanted to share with me. He wanted to make it equal. He wanted to say, "I have something." You know what I mean? And so, like, God, what a gift to
Yeah.
give something, someone who thinks they have nothing to give, to like have them recognize they have something to give. That is the complete opposite of they want from me, as opposed to they have something to give me that they actually want to give me. And if I don't show up to it, I'm going to miss that gift.
Yeah. So true. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. He's he's the one guy that we get to see in our, we don't have that many people. He sits in a wheelchair, and but man, there's a lot, you know, when we went into Chicago, there's a lot of people who are in need of a little light. And you get to kind of trust, you know, like when you said I might want to cross the street, like, don't judge yourself. If you're guided to do what love would have you do, that's what we have to do, is just trust the Holy Spirit. And even if we cross the street in fear, then we get to work with that with the Holy Spirit.
Mm.
Go, oh, look
Okay.
at there, I was in fear. I don't know how to stay. I don't know how to stay in that discomfort, Holy Spirit. Like, could you please help me, you know, to figure out how to stay and to stay in love and not move in fear. And then we know where our work is. And that is a universal place for all of us to work, man. I am of the tribe that sometimes locks the door as I drive through, you know, neighborhoods, or when I, you know, see a homeless person come up and I know I don't have money and I don't have time, or I think I don't have money or time. So we have work to do. It's okay. Yeah.
I really did love your Be Christmas, Don't Just Have Christmas, because it made me realize how much time we have spent in the last, I'm going to say 10 years, fighting over the word Christmas instead of over the spirit of Christmas. And so some people would take exception to that because the word Christmas was used. Be Christmas, well, I don't do Christmas. Well, let's just be helpful, holy, and whole. You know.
Yes.
Yeah, let's be that, and don't just have the presents that come up, you know, that morning on Christmas morning. Let's go beyond just having presents on Christmas morning. Let's be helpful, loving, and whole
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah. Yeah. Every day.
Every day. Yeah, that's a good thing to take into every day.
I don't have a question, just, you know, a thank you for leading us all to the manger today. I am so full. I am definitely in Bethlehem right now. So I just
The
thank
bread
you.
factory.
Fresh baked bread. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gigi.
That story that you just told about the bread factory, it reminded me of when I was a teenager, and there'd be a group of us out marauding around. We get hungry, and there was a back door to the bread factory. We could go and knock on the back door, and they would bring whatever, you know, sometimes it was donuts. It was a Hostess factory, so they'd bring donuts or, you know, whatever. So it's like, they could have just said, you kids get out of here, you know, go away. But they gave us bread. And then what was also shared, Sherry, about, you know, how we get stuck and how we're talking about Christmas is when people say, hey, are you ready for Christmas? I always thought, I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't go out and do all the shopping. I stay away from stores during Christmas season. So are you ready for Christmas? I always, what am I going to say? Now I know what I'm going to say. You know?
What are you going to
So
say? So we know.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I'm always ready for Christmas and mean it and really mean that.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember my husband Will was in a TV show one time, and there was this character, Bankhead. I think he played Bankhead, and there was a scene where they're like, "Do you know Bankhead?" And he's like, "I invented Bankhead." So when people say like, "Are you ready for Christmas?" I invented Christmas. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Will.
I don't know if this is going to track for everybody else or not, but you were just telling a story about the man with the beautiful eyes, and you wanted to take his picture, and his feeling that he wanted to, have something to offer in exchange. It's like having equal value, and it just made me think of the song "The Little Drummer Boy," which it's ridiculous. That song makes me cry most of the time that I hear it, because there's something about the story about the little drummer boy. Is like, I have nothing of worth. I have nothing to offer.
Mhm.
And then he realizes that he does. He plays his drum, and the baby smiles, and it's like he realizes that he's not worthless.
Mhm.
And that just always moves me so much, because I think we all feel sometimes worthless,
Mhm.
and to realize that we
Yeah.
aren't, that we do have something of value and something to offer. It's a beautiful thing. And something
Yeah.
about your story reminded me of that.
Yeah. I mean, within us dwells the option of being worthless or priceless. Like look at Lee's when she was singing, it was like priceless. That's the option on the menu. And there's very little gray area between them. And do we see each other that way? Do we see each other as worthless or priceless? And if we're to see each other the way the Blessed Mother, sees the Christ child, uh, can we like stretch into that vantage point, that vision that each of us is so priceless? And if we see other people like that, it might encourage ourselves. And I'm not going to mention that Will's picked up his guitar and he started playing again, because I'm gonna call him out. But we've got a couple of drummer boys in the community starting to find their voices and play their instruments, and it's pretty priceless. It's pretty priceless at every stage of the game. You know what I mean? Whether you're like Maisie Bull, filling amphitheaters, or you're, cobbling it together a little song in a closet like me. Each stage of it is so beautiful and so priceless. So thanks, Will.
We will be entertained
Mhm.
by Macy. I'm dying to hear what our next song is going to be. Excited.
Thank you, Maureen, for that talk. That was really beautiful. I think it's important and sometimes difficult to hold on to the truth that we all have inherent worth in us, so we don't have to prove it to anybody for it to be true. It's there. Love that. Yeah, let's sing. Also, I wish I was selling out amphitheaters. Not yet. We'll get there. Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. Truly, he taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all the oppression shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus raise we, let all within us praise his holy name. Christ is the Lord. Oh, praise his name forever. His power and glory evermore proclaim. His power and glory evermore proclaim. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Macy. What a perfect way to end this session.
Yes, yes, and you should be selling out amphitheaters, so don't underestimate that. Let's make
Someday.
it happen. 2024, open the door, let it be.
The visionary has spoken. Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, well, I want to thank everyone for sharing your Christmas Eve with us. We're wishing you a Christmas day filled with love, family, joy, and perfect health. So have a blessed week, and we will see you all next week.